Hello there, adventurers, and welcome to my game that I'm making, Tales of Agartha. Somebody great once said, should I start at the beginning or should I start where it is now? There's this idea that you need to have the perfect starting point, but in reality, all that actually matters is that you start. And so this is me starting. Devlog, Chapter 0, Introduction. I'm building a game. I don't quite know what the game's going to be. I have some big picture ideas of what I want it to be. Where it will end up, we'll see. It's a journey, and I invite you to go on that journey with me. I am designing, as a solo developer, a open world RPG game, possibly multiplayer, possibly MMO, although right now it's starting as a single player game. The inspirations for this game come from 3 games really, and you'll see hints of those design elements as I walk you through the features and development process of this game. World of Warcraft was a big part of my life for a very long time, and so you will see lots and lots of things lean very heavily on that design, gameplay, combat style, general MMO RPG adventure game. The other game in the same vein is Diablo, all the Diablo games. So some components of that I've always thought would translate well into an MMO, even though it's a isometric kind of top-down view, which I've actually managed to incorporate a little bit into this game, if the player so chooses. So you'll see some design elements there. And then lastly, Zelda. So fun, bright, colorful, whimsical type of game. And I think if you mash those 3 together, World of Warcraft, Zelda, and Diablo, you're in for a good time and a great adventure. So that's the game that I'm trying to make. So, where did I begin? Well, a little intro for me. I've been a game developer professionally for over 20 years, and I do this for a living every day, so naturally it wasn't that hard of a leap to just have some side projects. Obviously, over a couple decades, I've had many side projects. Most of them don't pan out. But this one really grabbed a hold of me, and I've been locked in for the last few months. I started this in September 2025, so I'm going on month 3. I'm a father of 5, and so there's not quite a lot of free time in my life to do this stuff. It mostly comes down to a couple hours a week sometimes, burning the midnight oil after bedtime. 1 to 2 hour dev sessions is about all I get. The occasional 1 day a week where I can put 4 to 5, 6 hours at a time and make something meaningful, make a big chunk progress, those are great days, but they're few and far in between. So, that being said, in 3 months I've actually made quite a bit of progress. Right now you can just see my character running around the screen, and it's working as intended. But I've got a lot further than this, but this is where we're going to start. I'm going to walk you through the systems I've designed, and I'm going to build them up one by one. And later on, I'll make individual series on each feature and how I designed it and created it. So naturally, when you're making a game, the first thing you have to do is make a character. It needs to be fun. It needs to be snappy. The controls need to feel fluid and smooth. They need to feel intuitive. And if you don't nail that first, it doesn't matter what game systems, combat systems, questing, grinding, achievements, none of that matters if the initial gameplay sucks. So that's where I started. I said, how can I make a fun, very snappy, very responsive, clean, third-person character controller that does what I want it to do? I started with Unity. That's the game engine I'm actually making this in, and maybe it's not a great choice, but it's something I'm very familiar with. I've been developing in Unity since 2009, and I know it like the back of my hand, I guess. I don't know what the back of my hand looks like, but that's what people say. So that's where I started. And I started with the demo third-person character controller that everybody can get for free from their asset store. So go check that out. But it's kind of basic, and it's a little bit locked. So you got to do some things to unlock it. First off, it's not made to have a mouse on your screen. When you move, it's like this all the time. The camera is locked to the character. You have no mouse. But if we're making an RPG, we need a mouse on our screen so we can click things. But we also need to be able to turn. So the first feature I designed was taking that default character asset and modifying it to my own needs. It already came with a clean controller system which handles jumping, running, and sprinting. So these are the three main controls to get you around the world. And they serve 90% of your movement. Running, jumping. And so that's where I started. But I said, hey, I need my mouse on screen. So I wrote some code that gave me my mouse back. It unpinned the mouse, the locked camera from the mouse, and gave me my mouse. But I said, occasionally, I do want the camera to spin. So I said, hey, if I hold down left click, I can orbit around my character. And when I let go of the mouse, it comes back exactly where I left it. So if you see, I can put my mouse right on top of his head. I can orbit around. Now, you may not seem like a great feat of design, but my hand is moving. My mouse is actually moving across the screen. But when I let go, it needs to come back right where it was. Say you have some buttons and you want to move the screen. Initially, when I designed it, I would hide the mouse. It would do this, but then my mouse would end up here in the top corner or somewhere strange because you are actually moving it. So I had to create a memory placeholder to reset my mouse back to its original place. And so left click orbits the character, and right click actually moves the character as you run. So it'll lock onto the character's back, and it gives you really snappy control. Middle mouse is set up for my zoom, so we can go pretty high, and we have full control to go all the way around. We're using Cinemachine, so it actually detects collisions. And so as the camera collides with objects in the scene that have mesh colliders, it will naturally, it's not perfect, but it'll try to come in at the max range that it can without clipping, and then go back out when you have free open space. So that's a great feature. Cinemachine is part of Unity's core functionality. So that was the first thing I did, was say, hey, I need a character. He needs to be snappy. He needs to be fluid. He needs to be able to jump, and I need a mouse that can interact with the screen. So then you say, okay, you've got your mouse, you've got your camera controls, what's next? Well, what's next is we need a character window. Can't have an MMO without a character window, right? I mean, this is the basis of design. So my UI is not great, but it's a placeholder. I used some free assets on various marketplaces, found 2D layouts that I liked, kind of photoshopped some pieces together, and I came up with something that looks kind of like this. Now, this is probably not going to be the final version. I'm sure at a much later date, maybe if the game expands and I can hire some people, we can redesign the UI. But for now, it has everything I need to build upon. We've got our base stats, power, that's going to be for your melee. We've got our wisdom, that's going to be for your spellcasters. Resolve is a health generation. The rate at which you resolve back to full health. The more resolve you have, good for tanks. The quicker your health regenerates both in and out of combat with slightly different calculations. Dexterity, that's your crit. The crit chance. We have insight, and that's similar to resolve, except it's for mana. So the more insight you have, the quicker your mana regeneration. And then you have avoidance, and that's going to be damage reduction. It will increase your dodge and then general chance to parry and things like that. So those are the rough ideas of those stats, how they work. Then we have things. So power directly affects your melee DPS. The more power you have, the more melee DPS. And this is a straight stack on top of your damage. Your wisdom is a straight spell stack to your spell DPS. So in this case, I have some some highlights here. They're actually out of place, a bit work in progress, but you can see spell DPS 50 wisdom equals 1% spell damage. I don't know if that's the final calculations, but something like that. We've obviously got health, we've got mana, we've got armor, and stamina. Stamina is an idea I came up with, and not the stamina like Warcraft, where stamina actually means health. In my game, stamina refers to how long you can do these sprints. I don't want the player to have infinite sprint. So you have a normal jog speed, and then you have a sprint speed, which activates a little bit. And that'll be all tied to a timer. And the more sprint, the more stamina you have, the longer you can sprint across the world, which could be useful for PvP, various combat systems, escaping enemies. And it's going to be a very important stat in the game. So that is one thing that's unique, is we're going to have a stamina. All players will be able to have starting stamina, but it'll be very short, maybe 10-20 seconds of sprinting, and that's it. And then there's a slow regen period. So I designed my character window, kind of the base layout. Right now this is just a snapshot, but eventually this will be a dynamic UI canvas render of the same 3D model reflecting your current gear. Some titles and things that may show up here. You have a helmet slot, a chest, legs, gloves, and boots. One thing that I'm doing in my game is I'm going to have 3 weapons, and you will always have access to a 2-handed weapon, whether it be a 2-handed melee or a 2-handed staff, or a pole arm, or a crossbow or bow and arrow, a rifle. Various types of 2-handed weapons will go here, and then you always have a main hand and an offhand. And the offhand could be 2 swords or 2 daggers, 1-handed items. So you will, as a player, always have the option for 2 1-handed items, a main hand, offhand, or 2 1-hands and a 2-hand. We've got 2 talismans or trinkets, as you would say, a couple of magic rings, and a magical necklace slot. Those things are subject to change, but they're pretty typical armor slot types in an MMORPG. One thing I have down here, which is a work in progress, is spell resistance. So my game is based around the elements of nature and the world. I spent a lot of time thinking about the elements. You know, everybody has their take on what elements actually exist: fire, water, wind. But I really needed to make concrete connections to the colors. And the colors of the world are very important to my story. We'll get to that much later. I'll give you a quick glimpse. We have fire for red, water for blue, nature, green obviously, wind is yellow. We have metal, which is gray. We have earth, which is brown. We have light and shadow as well, which is white and black or purple. Pretty standard elements. There's 2 more, which I'm not going to discuss right now, and they're kind of very unique elements. That'll be part of the story later on. I needed durability. Armor will have durability. You'll see that here. And then an expanded stat. So this was actually my original UI. It actually looked like this. I haven't updated it to match this side. So again, everything I'm showing is work in progress. This is just early development. It's not alpha, it's not beta, it's like, I don't know, omega, way down the alphabet, way at the end. That's where we're in. We're in the omega phase, which sounds pretty cool, but it actually means we're very far behind, got a lot to do. And so this panel will show you your expanded stats with, you know, what does 1200 armor actually mean? Well, it means this percentage of reduction. What does power mean? It means this crit, this hit. And so all that'll get expanded. So there you go. Brief introduction. We designed a character window. But just as a UI, I mean, it doesn't work. Yeah, I've got some highlights. It's detecting my mouse. It's a UI. But we need items. We need an inventory. We need a backpack. So the second thing I designed was the inventory system. I said, hey, I need to be able to collect items in the world. I need to be able to loot things. So we're going to collect items. And let me just show you something that's unique about my game that a lot of games don't have. I spent a lot of time designing a backpack system and thinking about it. The backpack, it holds your world items, but oftentimes in a lot of games, they put it all in one place, and it gets a bit confusing. So I've separated. So all your world items, this could be your herbs, your weapon, your gear, your crafting items, all that stuff goes into your backpack. I have a dedicated slot just for consumables, potions, foods, elixirs, flasks, things like that. And then another dedicated slot just for quest items. So any quest that you get, I don't want that stuff in the way of your base inventory. So we're going to keep that out of the way in its own nice little inventory. And we're using the standard high fantasy currencies of copper, silver, and gold, of course. You know, you can't go wrong with that system. So all that's tracked in your backpack. So the second thing was you collect items. I need to see what they are. So I had to create a whole dynamic tooltip system. Right now, everything kind of has stand-in rarity. So this axe, for example, is a common axe. It's a one-handed axe. It requires a level 1. It has a sell price. It's a common white item. And the axe go chop, 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 as it says. It has a item score, which will be used kind of like a gear score. So it's a level 1 item with a score of 2. It's common. And you can see that dynamically, the border is grayish white. Now, if I go to the next one, legendary. So this tooltip is a single tooltip that's driven by data and dynamically updated. There is one UI element in my game, and the tooltip updates no matter what the item I'm hovering over is. It always hovers to the top. The bottom right corner of the tooltip goes to the top left corner of my item. And so that took quite a bit of design to get that actually working. You can see here it pulls the icon, the label, two-handed weapon. This one has lots of health, mana, and armor. It's legendary, etc. So now that I've got that, I said, hey, I need stackable items. Gear will be one-off, but things like herbs and ores and stuff you're going to collect for professions needs to stack. So here we have 10, and I implemented some pretty cool logic I've never seen in another game. I don't want to share it because I don't want anybody to steal my ideas, but it's cool. So if I just left click, I can move it around the bag as you would expect. Everything moves, it snaps in place, it's quick, it's snappy, it's very intuitive UI. It works exactly like it should, so it doesn't seem remarkable. But it is to me because I designed all the code from scratch. I didn't borrow code. I built everything in this game code-wise from the ground up. No borrowed code, no plugins. The only thing I'm borrowing actually is a lot of artwork, which I found from the asset store. So this is not my artwork, but it's very similar to the style I'm going to create. For me, artwork was kind of at the bottom of the priority list. Artwork matters to an extent, but for my game, I needed something I could put together quickly, run around, have a playground to play in, test my stuff. And so these assets were a great starting point. And I do really love the style of this company. It's called Senti, so check them out. Links will be in the description. I will give all the credit to them. Awesome company. But I bought a few of these assets. I put some money up, and I bought a rights to use them. So hopefully they'll find this and enjoy what I'm making from some of their assets. Anyway, back to my stacks. If you left click and drag, you can also right click and drag. It moves it around. But if you want to split the stack, often like World of Warcraft, you have to shift click and then a menu pops up. It's kind of annoying. So I said, hey, left click, shift, and drag will take one right off the top. I can take one and I can move it around. Then I can combine them. That's pretty typical. But I said, hey, what if I want a quicker way to split a stack? So shift, right click, drag actually cuts it in half. So I can very quickly take my stacks of 10 or 50 or whatever and cut them in half with a single click, a single gesture. Again, right click. Now I've got 2 stacks of 5. So that was a pretty cool thing. That was a fun little module to work on designing that logic. All right, so here we are. We've got a character window, got a backpack. What else do we need? Well, we need a spell book. I mean, you can't have an MMO if you don't have spells, right? So again, right now I only have 6 spells because I just needed a few prototypes to test. And again, you're getting a glimpse into very much work in progress. you can see this entire UI is basically a duplicate of my equipment window because I wanted it to match, and I have this redundant stats which are still here, which will be deleted. And what's going to happen is when you click on that, this will actually show up down here and give you a bigger description of what the spell does. So that's not set up yet, but the spells are here, and you can see my first spell, Icy Rain. It's the iciest of shards, and that's what it does. The stats on the tooltip aren't all there, but I have a spell book, and it's cool. So, what do you do with a spell book? Well, you know, you need something to go along with your spell book. You need, let's see, where is it? An action bar. So here's my action bar. Let's hide the character window, hide my bag. Again, so you can see kind of sourcing that Diablo style health globes. I never really liked WoW where it had the default like portrait window up in the top left. Obviously there's mods to move it around, center it, but I always liked the Diablo style. You got a giant health globe, you got a giant mana globe. It's right there, it's on the action bar, it's easy to see. It's always out of the corner of your eye. You can very quickly see how much red do I got, how much blue. So I designed this little UI. It's nice. It's not perfect, but it serves purpose that it needs to. Let me see, my stat manager. I need to fix something. So, if you notice, there's this white bar at the top of my action bar. This was the thing I talked about earlier. It was stamina. As you can see, if I hold shift, it actually starts to drain. So I only have a limited number of stamina. And the slider's a little bit off, it's a little bit broken, but functionally it works right now. And it gives you a good indication and a nice easy place to look of how much stamina you have. Once that hits 0, he stops running. There it goes. I think. Is that working? I don't know if that's working. It might be broken. It was working at some point. Anyway, that's the stamina thing. I think I'm showing a feature that's broken. That did work. I promise it worked. And then it regenerates. So that's the idea there. We'll get that working again. You know, I'm just winging it here. I'm showing you guys everything as it is today, right now, on the fly. So, again, got our spell book, got our equipment window, got our action bar, we've got a backpack. Now we need to be able to have some quests. We need to be able to attack some monsters. Now, welcome to this area, which I've been hiding since the intro. It's called my demo beach, and it's kind of my test area. It's my play area, if you will. On the table, I've got a bunch of weapons. So in this game, the loot actually won't drop into like a little loot window. You'll actually be able to just like grab the weapons out of the 3D world. So as you highlight, you see the weapon, and I can loot it. A little pop-up comes up. This is now in my bag. And loot all of these, as long as I have space. This one's broken. Something is wrong on there. Anyway, live demo. That's the way it goes. So now that I've looted them, they go straight into my inventory. Okay, so now what? You gotta be able to equip it, right? So then I started working on my equipment. Simple right click will do, right? Straight into the inventory. It equips it. The stats update. I have all these stats. So as you can see, right now I have 350 health, 350 mana, and 100 armor, but this weapon has 1,000 health, 500 mana, 500 armor, just some test stats. And as I equip it, all those numbers update. It updates my globes, and there we are. The first starting point of equipping live gear. So right now in the game, I don't actually have any gear items other than weapons. So I have a bunch of weapons, and I can equip all of them. They have different stats, and they'll change my stats as they go. Simple right click from the inventory. This one happens to be one hand, and as we talked earlier, I can have two of them. So now I have dual wielding. I can swap it out to have 2 axes. Let's put that one here. Just drag and drop it. Oh, so that's a little bit broken. drag and drop. It's in. Say you have 2 and you want to swap. So eventually, I did mention that the 2-handed slot will always be available. It's currently not designed because that was a design idea I came up with later in the process. But for now, I've got this cool rifle. I can equip it. It's here. Eventually, this will be expanded to have 2-handed, 1-handed, and all of that. But the basic system is there. It takes the item, which is a 3D object. It converts it into a 2D image for my backpack. It stores the asset value. And then when I equip it, it throws the 3D model back onto my character, parented to the correct bone, and there it is. So, but, people like to be able to sheath your weapon. So that was the next thing I did. Took it straight from WoW. The letter Z toggles the sheath. Eventually, there will be an animation transition where he reaches up and grabs it. But for now, it goes straight to the back. So 2-handers go on the back. If I happen to have 2 1-handed weapons, they go on the hips. So they all have their own logic and their own rig, their own bone on the rig of where they get parented. But the basics of my equipment window are there. And when I had this done, this was like a monumental feature. This took so much effort to get working. I had to create offsets because when it attaches, they all have slightly different pivot points. I needed a custom pivot point per item, and even still, it's not perfect, but I can tweak it through my script I made so that each weapon has a custom point which I can basically move around so that it attaches to the hand correctly. So that was a huge feature. That took a lot of effort, but here we are. We have a character. He can equip weapons. It affects my stats. I have a stat window. It shows what's equipped. And we're off to the basics of a MMO. So the next thing I said, hey, we need to be able to, if my bag is full, I need to be able to get rid of stuff, right? So I added this, and this has a very temporary UI. This is how things start, a simple box with text. So if I want to destroy it, I can simply drop it in there and it's gone. It just got destroyed. You're never getting it back. But maybe I just want to clear some space. I can actually take my items and throw them out of my bag. Because again, I'm building this as all of the weapons are actual 3D objects. It's not just a little loot icon in a loot window. They're real objects, and I can loot it again, and I can drop it. Oh, I destroyed it. I can drop it. It has physics. It collides with the ground. It lands. It's nice. It's got a nice highlight. All of the rarity colors are dynamically driven. I can loot it. I can drop it. I can loot it. I can drop it. And this took a lot of effort to get the physics to work consistently, because the last thing you want is to drop an item and it falls through the world. So there is invisible meshes that are hidden on the object that help it collide with the terrain much better. It's like a giant box, like a disc almost. It's hidden, and after 2 seconds, the physics actually gets deleted. So it's only there for 2 seconds, it lands, and then it kills the physics so that it can't interact anymore, and now it's stuck on the ground. So I can run through it, whatever. But this was the best design to get it to actually work. And, he's actually, throwing it out of his inventory, kind of Grand Theft Auto style. Out of my infinite backpack, I just drop all this gear, so I can literally take everything in my bag and dump it off. So there you go. They have labels that show up. They're color coded, so you can quickly see when a mob drops some loot, if it's rare, if it's common, the name of it. It's got highlight. It's got a little outline which corresponds to the rarity. Green and blue, and a lot of these are kind of stand-in right now. Purple and blue and yellow, typical colors. None of that's final, but the thing is, it's a single file, so I can update that, and then every single item in my entire game will be dynamically driven by the new color palette. If I decide, legendary shouldn't be orange because that's what it always is, and I want my game to be unique. Now I want it to be aqua. I can very quickly do that across the board without having to individually modify every single prop, because it's all driven from one file source, and it's quite intuitive and quite a bit of ingenuity on my part. Patting myself on the back. Anyway, so a future feature, which is not here, is I want to actually have a timer. So Like, these things have like a 5-minute shelf life, because in game design, I can't just have objects infinitely on screen. They need to be destroyed at a certain point, or you can have memory build up. So anytime loot is dropped, it'll start a silent 5-minute timer. When it gets down to 1 minute, a little pop-up timer will actually show up next to the text and count down, basically like, hey, you got 1 minute left to reclaim this thing. Go vendor your stuff, come back and get it, or it will poof into thin dust like Thanos. So yeah, that's a feature that's coming soon. But we have a lot of the core systems done. I love being able to drop loot. I can even drop these flowers. It'll throw an herb right out of my backpack. So there's one issue with this feature. This flower actually doesn't have physics. That's why when I drop it, it just floats in the air, whereas this one... But one of the issues is these are actually stacks of 5, but when I drop it, it just becomes 1 again. So that's not a great design. So I need to figure out a way that if I drop a whole stack, I don't want to throw 20 flowers out in front of me, but something to solve, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, you can literally, every item in the game every icon is an actual 3D model that's represented. So it's fun, and it's kind of cool being able to throw out your loot. It's very much like a Diablo style thing, but in an MMO like WoW. So like, again, like I said, this is a mashup of my favorite things about WoW, my favorite things about Diablo, and then kind of the grand, colorful, fun adventure of Zelda is what the storyline's going to be driven, where you're collecting magical crystals to restore the kingdom, etc. So anyway, that's been a pretty long rant on my inventory system. Again, so the next thing I said was, hey, we got to have, like, I don't like these axes. I'm going to put my green sword back on. I said, hey, I need to be able to have like a banking system or a stash. So that was what I came up with next, was my stash. And when you open it, I can take items from my backpack. Let's just say I'll drop one in each corner so you can see through here. And then imagine you travel across the world and you're in another town, and here's your stash again. Oh, there's my items. I can grab them right back out and put them back in. And so creating the link from stashes, where if I put it in one stash, it's universally saved across all stashes in all locations. Let's just say I'll put 3 of these here, and now I come to my other stash, and again, it's instant. It's like email. It's just there. So again, we mirrored our backpack, where we have a world stash. We have, oh, here's some of my potion stash, and then quest items. Potions have their own specific spot. So one thing on my action bar, and this is one thing I actually didn't talk about yet, but let me talk about potions first, is I have 4 dedicated spots specifically just for potions. So Q, E, Shift Q, Shift E. Very quick hotkeys to activate your potions. You can keep 4 of them there. Another thing I want to do is create this top row as a queue system. So if you accidentally use up all the potions that are there and they disappear, we'll have a queue, and it'll automatically queue the top row into there again as those slots empty. So that's something I've never seen done, but it's my own creative idea. Don't steal it, or maybe if you steal it, give me credit. I don't know, whatever. I'm putting it out on the internet, so here it is. That's how I'm going to design the consumable system. Back to the spells. Obviously in this game we're going to have classes. They'll have access to their own unique abilities. But I always thought, like, I liked Diablo, where you have a whole bunch of spells, but you can really only access 4 or 6 of them at a time, even though you have, a couple dozen. Whereas WoW, you have 50 spells that you can access all of them, but then your action bars are filled up here and they're on the side of the screen, and you can have all these add-ons. So I said, why don't I kind of make something that's in between? I want to have the feel of an MMO with lots of abilities, but a limited amount. And so maybe I have 50 spells in my spell book, but I can actually only use 12 of them. And so these, for now, are the 12 slots. They're just simply bound to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then F1 through 6. Obviously, excuse me. Those will be customizable to your own key bindings and likings, but I thought it might be kind of cool to build very unique builds. So you have enough to get pretty creative, but you're also clamped at a certain point where maybe you have to make that sacrifice and choose one spell over another. Again, it's a mashup, and I thought that would be my game design system. We'll see as it progresses how things go, but yeah. So that's the spell system. One thing that I'll kind of tell you is everything in the game is an item. So spells are an item. They're just a spell class of an item. Herbs are an item. They're just an herb class. Weapons are an item. Gear is an item. The spells are actually items. You collect them. Now, I actually already own these spells, so when I try to collect them, it just gives me a warning. Some of my highlights are a little bit broken. But they go in here, and they can only exist once. Now, I can drag these straight onto my action bar. And I can drag a whole bunch for the memes if I just want to load up my action bar with all frostbolts. So yeah, so that's that system. Let's see, where are we in development? I said, okay, so we need to have loot, like herbs in the world that I can loot. So we can loot them. Let's just loot some herbs. But we need to have them respawn. So imagine they're not all... Oh, I leveled up. We'll get to that in a second. So imagine the herbs are not all right here. Again, this is my test beach. I kind of just dump everything right here so I don't have to run across the world to test features. I just put all my stuff here, and I'll explain all these signs here in a minute. And again, so you can see as I loot these herbs, imagine they are actually out in the world. You loot them in various places. They spawn randomly, and they have a set duration of how often they respawn. So these respawn pretty quick because I want to be able to test. And I actually use these to test my leveling system. Looting these gives like an absurd amount of experience points, but it gave me a good way to quickly test my EXP. So imagine I killed a creature, or I did a quest and I got experience, but for my playtesting needs on my test beach, I needed to be able to quickly loot, and as you can see, I get like 100 experience each. And as I loot, I'm level 13. Notice here my stats all level 13. And one more, leveled up 14, and so naturally all my stats increased by 1. That's some of my stat system I designed. And then again, the herbs will naturally respawn. They're obviously not going to be like this. They're going to be spread throughout the world, and the timer will probably be much longer than the 10 seconds. But again, you get the idea. It's my test beach. So I created a second herb that basically does the same thing. Gives a small amount of experience, and it respawns at some set duration. So you can see these pop back up. So that solved my respawn thing. I can use this script and this logic for creatures. I can use it for herbs, for ores, for all the looting and respawnable things that would happen in a world. That was a pretty cool system to design. And I'll give you a hint on the way that I did it was I'd simply have coordinate. They're empty group nodes, and they just have a coordinate value, and say there's actually 10 of them right here randomly, and then as it respawns, it will look for which ones are available, and it will spawn in one of the empty ones. So it holds reference to the ones that are filled. That way I don't get double spawn, which is actually something Warcraft has not solved. I solved it pretty easily. Essentially, I check which values have an item in there, and then as the items go into queue for respawn, they cannot go into a filled slot. So the 5 flowers that respawn always go to their own unique spot from one of the available 10 slots. So that's a little detail on my logic and thinking. Obviously, it's all in code, which code, if you're wondering, is C#. We are in Unity, so it's all C#. Everything's C#. I love C#. It's a very simple, easy language to jump in, dive in. All right, so we've got, look at all these treasure chests. What's going on here? So I said, hey, all right, I need a loot table. So imagine I find a chest out in the world. You know, it highlights. I want to know what's in it. And it needs to be able to spawn loot randomly. So I created a chest that has its own loot table. and it has a percentage value assigned to each item on how often. So most of the time you're going to get a bunch of vendor junk, but you could get that rare occasion where you get a couple extra potions or something rare, and that'll all be a loot table that's been designed. So let's open one up. Simple animation for now. But again, unlike WoW, where you actually bend down and get like a little pop-up window to loot, this one literally just ejects a bunch of loot out onto the ground in front of you. Let's do it again. Eventually this will be animated and look nice, but for now it's just toggle. Here it's got some sound. And again, you can see that the thing hit the ground, it kind of rolled, and then it stopped. That's the physics collider. And again, then the chest disappears after a few seconds, and the chest will actually respawn. Uses that same respawn logic as my herbs, because we want chests to spawn randomly throughout the world, and as you find them, they'll respawn somewhere else at a set duration randomly. But again, so currency. The gold is actually like physical gold on the ground. You can see here, this one's 11 gold. And you don't actually have to loot it. The gold I wanted to loot simply by collision. So you just run into it. I grabbed 11 gold. I don't know if you noticed down here, it actually went up. I'll show you again. We got 24 gold. Watch down here. It goes straight into my bag. You get a little pop-up, make some noise. Awesome little system. So again, we're using tricks of development. All the little gold clusters have oversized colliders so that when you get close to it, it hits my player collider and it goes into my inventory pretty seamlessly. Again, pretty standard stuff. Like nothing that I'm doing is groundbreaking, but it's me, one person doing it. Not a whole studio, not a whole team. Just little old me designing every single system from scratch by myself. So yeah, it's exciting. And if you're a developer, you probably appreciate the thought that went into this. This is my long introduction video, and again, in the next few chapters, I'll break down technically and show you more editor design on how I built each feature and, you know, the code base a little bit. I'm not going to share my code, but I'll give you a glimpse into the design principles that help me build these systems. All right, so we've got respawnable items. We've got loot tables. This logic can easily be attached to a creature or a boss or other chests or any type of system. So again, the way I describe it is I've been showing some friends and family this game, and they're like, "Oh, when can I play it? And it's like, well, I'm not actually building a video game yet. What I'm building is a video game factory that will allow me to build a video game. So the idea is that if you want to build a car, you don't just go build a car. First, you build a factory that can build cars. So that's what I'm doing. I'm building my game factory with all the foundational tools, kind of in a test bed. And then, you know, eventually once the systems are there, it's just a production effort of just, all right, now duplicate your sword into 1,000 different sword items, duplicate the chest across the world, make the world bigger, make the flowers bigger, make more flowers. It's just a production effort, but the fundamental logic has already been designed. So I'm not actually building a game yet, even though it looks like one. What I'm building is a game factory. And once I've built all the core systems on my little test bed island right here, then we'll go into a production mode. We'll scrap this test asset. We'll build everything from scratch. We'll make a giant world, populate it with herbs, populate it with creatures and chests and quests and all that. But right now we're literally just building the design. And it's all right here on a little 100-yard square of beach that I can run around and quickly test. So what have I missed? Oh, yes, the mini-map up here. As you can see, if you noticed, we have two things going on. We have a compass on my action bar, so I can see my orientation, and then we have a mini-map up here. And there's a button that, oh, there it is, Alt. So that'll actually make it bigger, and then you can see where you are in the world. So it's a pretty straightforward feature. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but it's my own design. We have a mini map. If I want to make it bigger, I have a quick button to toggle it, and I can see where I'm going, the direction. Maybe I can see features. Eventually, we'll have like points of interests and quests and all those little icons up here that'll help you navigate. We can also do Oh, sorry about that. I had to drink some water. Been talking for a minute here. Eventually we can do like, man, Grand Theft Auto style quest trackers on this thing. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at so far in development. Oh wait, no, there is more. Targeting systems. Oh, look at this. So I have tab targeting. I can left click and select an item. I have a pop-up. It'll show me anything that's interactable in my game uses this outline. It's a very quick way to see things you can click on. But I also have tab targeting. So the way I designed this system, and this took quite a bit of logic and thinking to get it to actually work smoothly and intuitively that way that you want, is I have a radius from the front of my character, kind of like going out this way and this way, like a fan in front of him. And anything that's in that fan that is a selectable object, which is a class of object that I created called selectable object, it means you can select it. And if it's within the range and within the fan of my character's front-facing field of view, then I can tab target it. So right now, I have 5 items that are all within the fan. But as you can see, when I tab targeted, it went to this one first. And that's because what I'm doing is actually assigning everything a score based on the score value. It's a complicated math algorithm. I'll spare the details. But basically, it's assigned a score based on how close it is to the dead center line, and then how far left or right is it. So what I'm thinking based on this is if I tab target secondly, this one should have the second highest score, right? And it does. This one has the third highest score, and it does. This one maybe, okay, this one has the highest, and then this one has the lowest score because it's the furthest off my view, and then it repeats the cycle. And it's not taking into my camera position, it's taking into my player's position. So as I move the camera around, the targeting stays the same. It's based on where my character is actually facing. So if I control left click, I can deselect. And again, if I'm facing here, that's the highest score. If I go here, that's the highest score. If I go here, that's the highest score. So it basically is projecting out in front of me and grabbing the first thing that has the highest score, and it resets every time I move. If I stay still, it'll just cycle through the same cycle, and then every time I move, that score is reset and recalculated. And it's quite an awesome system because originally it was kind of just selecting randomly. It didn't feel good. Like, you want to be able to run towards a target and know that, like, in an AoE situation, you want to grab the boss or whoever you're aiming at. You want to be able to just point at them and tab target. So that was a pretty awesome system. We're using a decal projector, which projects the ring on the ground. Obviously, I'm just using a simple circle, but the graphic can change. The color could change. Maybe something to indicate a rare mob or a boss mob, or if it's friendly, it'll be green, or if it's an NPC, blue, or a quest could be yellow. And all that can be driven dynamically. But yeah, that's my tab targeting system. Each object, these are the same 5 signposts. They're called signposts. They have an icon, they have an item level, and they have health. But what good is that if you can't, let's see, if you can't damage it? Oh, so we have spells, actually. We got some crossbolts, which is spawning way over here. Let me fix that real quick. I don't know what's going on with that. That is way off kilter. 0. So that's one of my offset values. There we go. Now the frostbolt's back in here. So again, the combat system was something I just started getting to. I built a lot of the core systems. I've got inventory, I've got characters, I've got stats, I've got experience, I've got the stamina system, the action bar, the spells, consumables. I've got my stash system, I've got my loot drop system. And so naturally targeting and damage was what's next. So every spell, I don't have the tooltip here, has a certain min and max value, and it will be randomly. So 8, 5. This volume's kind of loud. Let me turn that off. Anyway, and I want it to feel very snappy. It has a global cooldown. So some spells like this one, it just has a 1 second global cooldown. You can spam it. Now, this is, again, work in progress. And where I'm at right now is that I can damage the post. It goes to 0. I don't have death and I don't have loot drop. We're literally just at the targeting and damage. So again, I can drop a bigger spell like these phaser bombs, which come in and explode and rain sunshine, and all of the floating combat numbers are there. It's random value. I can shoot this thing. I can drop these blood boils. I can rain ice. I can power up my character with an energy boost. So all of these systems, I can quickly just cause chaos, and look at how snappy this is. I can literally just start dropping bombs everywhere. And so that's the spell system, which I was kind of hiding until now. But yeah, this needs to feel snappy. This was so hard to feel fluid, have the particle effects work. A lot of these particle effects are kind of test, but we got icy rain. They all have their own sound. They have their own animation. So as I trigger this, he does an animation. As I trigger this, he does a different animation. As I trigger this, he does a different one. This one, and a boost. So again, we have our 6 test spells. We've got like our 6 test weapons, a couple test herbs, a couple test targets, and that's where we are. So coming up next is having floating health. Obviously, the main target has this UI which shows you the main target, but for AoE, they all need to have their own individual health bar. So that's coming soon. This is right where we're at. And as we said in the beginning, should I start from the beginning or should I start where I am? I don't really know what happened. I think I started where I am and then I went to the beginning and now I'm back to where I am. So that answers that. But here we are. The game is called Tales of Agartha. Agartha, if you're not familiar, is one of the oldest legends of mankind. It is I don't know what the word is. It's in the public purview. It is like an open source topic that anybody can develop on. So for me, Agartha is this ancient inner city, inner kingdom inside the earth of the hollow earth. And there's various theories, but that's where we are. We're in this mythical land called Agartha. We're going to explore legends and myths of the past, tap into Lemuria and Atlantis and all of these ancient lores, the sirens and cyclopses and golems and dragons and phoenixes. So classic mythology set in this world called Agartha. The game is Tales of Agartha. Thank you for watching. This is where I'm going to end it for now. There's probably a system I skipped. Let me go look at my UI. Respawn, projectile, action bar, inventory, equipment, floating UI, selectable, world music. Oh, wait, quests. What am I thinking? We have quests in this game and I didn't even talk about it. Let's do this. I'm going to make this this is like a 1-hour rant and I'm going to just send it. But let's talk about quests. So, quests. This was actually the first, this actually did quests before I did inventory, before I did my character, before I had an action bar, when my game looked like this. Wait, that didn't work. That's not what I meant to do. When my game looked like this. No, that's not what I meant to do either. What am I doing? When my game looked like this. There we go. Bye-bye. I created a quest system. So here it is. This was this sign, and it ended up becoming my first targetable object. So look at this amazing UI. This was literally how it started. And so again, I reiterate, it doesn't matter how you start. You just have to start. This was like a terribly designed UI and it had bad text, but I just needed like an object I could click on that gave me a quest that I could accept the quest, and it goes into my quest log. And actually the quest log text is wrong because it's supposed to say get the giant crystal, but it says 5. Anyway, this was like a prototype. So we're going to go out on an adventure into the world. We're going to find this giant crystal that it wants us to bring home. Oh, there's some crystals. And as I get close to it, this ambient noise resonating from the crystal emanates. And so it helps me find it. So again, oh yeah, the cursor. I never talked about my cursor. I have this cursor, and when I interact with an interactable object, you probably notice it switches to the little hand. When it's gray, it means it's out of range. But as I get close, it turns orange, which means I can actually loot it. The quest is complete. Oh wow, you did it. You must be some sort of explorer. See, it's supposed to say explorer, but oh my god, it was so quickly written. Here it is, take your reward. And objective complete. And you get some experience and you get some gold, and now we have a fully functioning prototype of a quest system. And so again, I only have 2 quests. The next one was again, so here's the next version of my UI. It got a little bit better, but it was still very bad. The overlap is bad, blah blah blah. Go bring me those 5 quests. I'll give you. What are you waiting for? So now we have a quest. There's the. Actually, now that I think about it, I made this one first, and then I duplicated it, and that's why that one said 5 crystals. But out in the world, which actually, I saw one of those crystals over here. Out in the world, there's 5 crystals, and this was actually before I had an inventory system. I was actually tracking it just through like a UI interface, and so before I couldn't loot this crystal because I didn't have the quest, but now that I have a quest, it becomes active and it emanates that same sound that the giant crystal had. And when I loot it, nothing happens because it's broken. But yeah, that's my system. Oh wait, I see a crystal over here. Let's go get this crystal. Let's see if we can loot it. Oh, this bear. Don't mind this bear. He doesn't do anything. He just is there. That'll be an enemy at some point. Bye, bear. Does this one work? None of these crystals work. Anyway, you collect 5. It's supposed to complete. It's a little bit broken, but you get the idea. That's my quest system. That's actually going to be entirely overhauled soon based on some new design workflow I have with scriptable objects. Anyways, I think I'm done rambling. My throat is done talking. Welcome to Tales of Agartha. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed going along on the ride with me as I build the insurmountable task of building an MMORPG by myself. I know there's a couple other YouTubers and devs out there doing a similar thing. It's a passion project. Who knows where it'll be. But I say a year from now, we could have a demo. Maybe sooner. It's been 3 months. So stick around for my future videos where we'll go deeper into the actual tech and we'll talk design. I'll get into the editor, show you some Unity stuff and how I'm actually building the systems. But again, yeah, I did this in 3 months by myself as a full-time working dad. It's possible. I've made a lot of progress. There's a ton of systems to do. I still need to get creatures that spawn and attack me, and I need to be able to have them attack me. But you know, right now I can select a sign and I can drop some ice on it and I can kill it, and that's cool, and it's snappy and it feels quick. It feels very intuitive, just the way you want. Anyway, Tales of Agartha coming soon, one day. Bye bye for now, and thank you for watching. Please comment below. Let me know how you think I'm doing. Any ideas I can improve, things you like, things you don't like. I'm open to any comments or suggestions. I want to set up a Patreon. There's a couple developers on the asset store I've worked with, and I will give them mentions as I go in depth into those systems. But again, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now. See you next time, adventurers.